Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we're putting the absolute fundamental DNA of process control, the first-order system, through 4 rigorous mathematical stress tests. Look, if you're studying engineering or process dynamics, you already know that understanding how a system responds to different inputs is absolutely critical. But today, we're not just memorizing equations. We are going to visually and mathematically break down exactly how these systems behave under pressure. Let's get into it. So, here's our game plan for today's stress test. We'll start by kneading the system, then we'll run a step test, an impulse test, a ramp test, a sinusoidal test, and finally, wrap it all up with an ultimate summary. All right, part 1, let's meet the first-order system. Okay, to really understand any process, you need its mathematical fingerprint, which we call a transfer function. Here, it's represented as y of s over x of s, and that equals k sub p divided by the quantity tau s plus 1. Basically, y is our output, x is our input, and that denominator, that's where the magic happens. The time constant, represented by the Greek letter tau, dictates exactly how sluggish our system is. Think of a standard mercury thermometer. If you take it out of a freezing room and toss it into a warm bath, it doesn't read the new temperature instantly, right? It takes time for that mercury to heat up and expand. That delay, that natural resistance to instant change, is captured perfectly by tau. Moving on to test 1, the step input. Imagine just flipping a switch or instantly opening a valve to a specific spot and just leaving it there. Let's break down the derivation step by step to see how a step input of magnitude A translates into our final time domain response curve. So in the Laplace domain, or S domain, our step input, x of s, is simply A over s. We multiply this input by our transfer function to get our output, y of s. That gives us A divided by s times the quantity tau s plus 1. But, we don't live in the S domain. We live in the real world, the time domain. So we apply the inverse Laplace transform. This yields our final equation. Y of t equals A times k sub p multiplied by 1 minus e to the power of negative t over tau. It's a beautiful equation, really. It describes a curve that starts out fast and smoothly levels off to its ultimate steady-state value. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Exactly when time, t, equals the time constant, tau, the step response is exactly 63.2% complete. That's not just a random number. It is a massive engineering benchmark. If you're ever staring at a response curve on a screen and you want to find the time constant on the fly, just find the point where the response has reached 63.2% of its final destination. The time it took to get there, that's your tau. Now, while the step input represents a permanent change, kind of like turning on a heater, our next test, the impulse, is fundamentally different. It's a sudden shock. Think of it less like flipping a switch and way more like striking a bell with a hammer. It's an intense burst of energy delivered in an incredibly short, theoretically zero amount of time. Which brings us to test 2, the impulse input. A unit impulse input creates a totally different reaction. The Laplace transform of a true, ideal unit impulse is literally just 1. This makes the math incredibly clean. We multiply 1 by our transfer function, so y of s is just our transfer function. When we pull this back into the time domain using the inverse Laplace transform, we get y of t equals k sub p over tau multiplied by e to the negative t over tau. What does this actually mean physically? Well, it means the output doesn't start at 0 and climb. Instead, it creates an immediate vertical jump to its max value of k sub p over tau, and then immediately begins an exponential decay back down to 0 as the system recovers from the shock. All right, test 3, the ramp input. For this one, we are steadily and constantly increasing the pressure, the flow, or the temperature. Following the math, our linear input, with a slope of b, has a Laplace transform of b over s squared. When we multiply this into our system, the denominator gets a bit heavier. Doing the inverse Laplace transform here requires partial fractions, but once the dust settles, our time domain output gives us 2 distinct parts. We've got a linear term, b times t, and an exponential transient term. Because of that transient term, the system's output desperately tries to chase the linearly increasing input, but it definitely struggles to keep up at first. And you can literally see that happening right here. The top line is our ramp input steadily climbing. That curve below it, that's our system's output. Notice how it starts off curved? That's the transient exponential term doing its work. But as time goes on, that exponential term dies out. After that initial transient period, the output actually runs perfectly parallel to the input. But here is the kicker. It is permanently lagging behind the input by a time difference exactly equal to our time constant tau. If you measure the horizontal distance between those two parallel lines, you get tau. It's just a brilliant visual confirmation of the math. Finally, test 4, the sinusoidal input. Picture a temperature bath just endlessly cycling between hot and cold. How does our sluggish thermometer keep up with a constantly moving target? Well, to solve this derivation, we combined our frequency-based input, where omega represents the frequency of the oscillation, with our transfer function. The Laplace transform for a sine wave is a times omega over s squared plus omega squared. When we multiply this by our transfer function, the denominator becomes highly complex. To make sense of this math and find our time domain response, we are absolutely forced to use partial fraction expansion to break this massive equation down into smaller, solvable chunks. The math gets pretty rigorous here, but let the partial fraction expansion do the heavy lifting. As time approaches infinity, the transient exponential terms just disappear. The math reveals that the ultimate steady-state response is in fact another sine wave with the exact same frequency as the input. However, two huge things have changed. First, the amplitude is attenuated, meaning the peaks and valleys of the output wave are smaller than the input wave. The faster you oscillate the system, the smaller the output wave gets, because the system just doesn't have time to catch up. Second, there's a phase lag. The output wave is shifted in time, permanently lagging behind the input wave. All right, you've survived the stress tests, so let's bring it all together, the ultimate response summary. So the absolute crucial point is right here on this cheat sheet. This is a direct screenshot-worthy mapping of every forcing function we just covered, paired with its Laplace transform, and finally, its resulting time domain reality. Whether you're dealing with the 63.2% completion of a step input, the immediate spike of an impulse, the constant delay of a ramp, or the attenuated phase shift of a sinusoid, it all traces back to exactly how that single time constant, tau, dictates the flow of energy and information. It's the whole shebang. Now that you've totally mastered how a single first-order system behaves, I want to leave you with a provocative thought. What happens when we don't just have one thermometer, but a whole chain of distinct processes? How chaotic does this transfer lag get when we connect multiple first-order systems together in series? The math compounds, the lags stack up, and those response curves get completely transformed. But we'll have to save that complex dynamic for our next explainer. Thanks for hanging out with me for the system stress test.